Hey Legends, Jacksondale here, and this video is called Titanfall 3, 3 Things EA Needs to Do to Succeed. Now, if you haven't heard, EA now officially owns the Titanfall series. They purchased Respawn Entertainment, the developer, about a year ago. And this has really worried a lot of people, so I wanted to do this video to make 3 high-level suggestions to EA for things they could do to help them succeed and make Titanfall 3 a success. It's a very high-level suggestion, so I'm not going to get too into the gameplay, but let's jump into the 3 right now. Number 1, let the developers make the developmental decisions. So now that EA owns Respawn, they technically can just kind of walk in there and tell these developers what they want done. Now that's not 100% true, but bottom line is if they own it, they have a lot more power over these big decisions of like gameplay, design, and everything else. And it's really important, I think, for EA to just be smart about this and let the developers make these decisions themselves. Respawn has some really smart people. They have some great talent. I've met some of them at Titanfall events in the past. They've got some of the best people in the FPS industry, probably in the gaming industry. So if they can let these people make the decisions themselves with some oversight, sure they got to manage some things, but let these people make the decisions themselves. They're the developers. Let them do it. And if EA can manage that one, I think it's going to be really good for Titanfall 3. Number 2, test and market the game properly. Now, let me tell you, Titanfall 2 had some major issues with both the way they tested the game and the way that the game was marketed. So let's start with testing. When Titanfall 2 was tested by the public, it was first tested in August and it was called the tech test. Now this tech test, it wasn't marketed well. Not too many people knew about it because they only announced the tech test, I think it was about a week or so before it actually came out. So there weren't too many people playing the tech test online or even on friends lists or on Twitch or anything. But a problem with the tech test, another problem, was that there was a huge difference from Titanfall 1 initially. They slowed down the movement and there was a whole debacle about it. And people were really pissed off about how the game felt completely different. Now they did revert it and they sped it up. But it's like, man, they shouldn't have to go to a public tech test to realize that something like that was way off to what people wanted. So for Titanfall 3, what I'd suggest is bring in content creators to test the game totally privately, not to share with their audience, but bring in content creators like Frothy Omen, Iniquity Games, Jaredude, everyone else who runs a Titanfall channel, or at least they're very into Titanfall and they have a fan base. Bring them in to test your game throughout the cycle and get live feedback from people who run these communities, who listen to all these voices from people who play Titanfall. Like, test it properly rather than just trying to push it through some beta at the last second and then make changes. You should kind of know whether the game is good before you get to that stage. So they need to test this thing better. And secondly, they got to market the game properly. I had a conversation with someone from EA for Titanfall 2, and I was asking him on Twitter in a DM, why aren't you guys hyping up this game more? And I asked him that because I noticed that there weren't really many trailers. There wasn't a lot going on in the marketing department for Titanfall 2, especially compared to Titanfall 1. So I asked him, why aren't you hyping the game more? And he replied to me and he said, we don't like to hype games up. So that's totally the wrong philosophy to have if you're working in marketing, and EA really needs to have someone who can hype games up. They need someone to go out there and make trailers, to make content, to make constant updates on social media, doing whatever they can to get this game into the hearts and minds of Titanfall fans out there, all the way back to people who played Titanfall 1. So they need to market this thing properly. And hopefully for Titanfall 3, they're going to have a team actually hyping this thing up versus keeping it non-hyped. That blows my mind how that was the strategy for Titanfall 2. Number 3, they need to release this game at a good time. Titanfall 2 was released smack dab in the middle of Battlefield and Call of Duty. It was in the fall, and it was a really bad choice for the release. In fact, it was so bad, some people theorized that the reason EA chose that release date was to intentionally make Titanfall 2 sell less so that they could buy Respawn. Now, I don't know about that. That seems a little too out there. But I think it's clear that Titanfall as a series can't compete neck and neck with other massive shooters at the exact same time. So they need to push it back to a further date where it's not competing directly with Battlefield or with Call of Duty or other big games. Basically, they need to make sure that the release date for Titanfall 3 is at a good time where they can actually compete, where they can stand out and get as much traction as possible. So to recap, I really think if EA can let the developers make the developmental decisions, test and market the game properly, and release it at a good time, this game's going to be a success, and it's going to have a lot more players than Titanfall 2. Now, there's definitely so many other suggestions you could make on more of a gameplay level. I kind of wanted to keep this one high level and not too subjective. But if you have any suggestions for how Titanfall 3 could be a better game, definitely drop it in the comment section below. I'd love to see your thoughts. And join our Discord if you haven't yet. We got a new Discord up there. We'd love to have you a part of it. Make sure to subscribe if you're new here to become a legend. This has been Jacksondale, and until next time, stay legendary.